everybody. Hello, welcome to CFBBroadcast.com. We're coming to you live from the She Shed Radio studios in the heart of college football country in Alabama. We're here to review the college football week 3 and what was, and go over the big games this week. And we're going to go over what were the surprises this week and everything. And then we're going to look forward to week 4, which is loaded with a lot of big games. If you look at on the surface, we talked about this last week on the show where there was not any matchups. It was the first time since 2017 that you did not have a top 25 matchup between any teams. So we were hoping that we would get some exciting games, and we did for the most part. We found out a little bit more about some teams. Some teams bounced back. Just looking at the games going over, I would say that the game of the day, the game of this week turned out to be, for me, it was the University of Florida traveling to the University of Kentucky, and a game that went down to basically a missed field goal. The final score, 29-21, really doesn't tell you the whole story. But Florida escaped despite losing Filippo Franks, and they may have found a quarterback that can carry them. To be quite honest, I believe that they looked a little bit better with the new quarterback in there. What say you, JB?
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good. That was a really good game. And what else was a boring Saturday of college football? I really wasn't excited about any of these games. The Florida-Kentucky game obviously turned out to be one of the best games of the day, but other than that, it was pretty much a dud Saturday. I couldn't get excited about many of these games.
Not many upsets. It wasn't many upsets at all. Had Kentucky lost, and it's going to be, had Kentucky won, that would have thrown the East in the SEC up in a little turmoil, as Florida is expected to be really the team that pushes Georgia. And really, looking at it, Florida was really the only team that had a realistic shot of what people think about at beating Georgia. The other teams, you really don't see that. If there is a competition in the East, it would be from Florida. So had they lost their first game going out within the conference, it would have been a bad sign of things to come for the East. But
they nearly threw it into turmoil. They missed it by about 2 inches to the right. So,
missed field goal. And we were watching that game together, and I do not know why. Well, I guess I could know. They tried earlier in the game when it was 4th down and 1. They tried to go for it. They didn't make it. And I think he had a lot of confidence in his kicker. But if I've got a redshirt freshman kicker and I've got a field goal outside of 40 yards and I've got a half a yard to go, I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm going to try to pick up a first down and get a little closer and at least get it to where Florida at the time would have still had over a minute to go in the game to get into field goal range themselves with 3 timeouts. So,
yeah, that's one of those things where if he made the kick, it would have been a great call. If he went for it on 4th and missed it, it would have been a terrible call. If he'd have went for it on 4th and made it, it would have been a great call and got him closer to the field goal range. So, I don't know. It's one of those things that you go for it. You make your decision and stick with it. So that's what happened. And I mean, it was close. He almost made
it. But it's like we talked about last week with Louisiana Monroe when they tried to, they kicked the field goal at the end of the game instead of going for 2, going for the win. I think sometimes these coaches just stick too close to the book, and they they play it too safe. So, but anyway, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens next week with Florida as they play Tennessee. They're at home against Tennessee, and we'll review that in the games of the weeks that are coming up. But it looks by all indications that they're going to be without Franks for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
They carted him off. It was ugly when he got bent. You could tell when he got bent back he was hurt. So I thought the Kentucky quarterback came in there and played a good game, and I thought the kid from Florida, Trask.
Yeah, they looked good.
They looked good when he came into the game. So we'll see what happens with Florida going forward. But they survived and they advanced in what I would call the game of the week in week 3. And we will see. And you talked about it, JB, that the other games of this week, there were not a lot of good games on the schedule. Games that we thought were going to be good at the beginning of the year has been kind of derailed by some early season upsets. Clemson, just going through the top 25, Clemson basically had no trouble with Syracuse.
It was close for a little while.
It was close for a little while. Trevor Lawrence put up some bigger numbers, but he had over 350 yards passing. But I know 90 of those came on one little play where he threw it for about 2 yards, and then the running back took it for 90 yards. But what's interesting to me is he threw 2 interceptions. That gives him 5 interceptions on the year. He only had 4 interceptions in all of last year. So he already has more interceptions through 3 games than he did all of last year. So, and, you know, they're still, I wouldn't say sputtering on offense, but they're not hitting on all cylinders by any means.
Not yet, but we know they probably will by the end of the year. So,
yeah.
But, you know, maybe Trevor is second year, maybe he's getting more confidence in himself, and he's probably trying to throw some balls that he shouldn't. But, you know, he's still just a sophomore, so I'm sure he'll learn from all his interceptions, I think. But, you know, like you said, he only threw 2 last year,
No, he threw 4 last year, and he's thrown 5 already this year through 3 games.
So maybe he's getting a little too confident, thinking he can fit the ball in some coverages. So
that's a good point. Maybe so. But they won. Their defense is looking solid.
They do.
So, you know, and Alabama, a 47-23 victory. South Carolina added a late touchdown, and another missed extra point by Alabama kept Alabama from covering that game. Looked like it pushed in a lot of locations. 24-point victory. What I would say there is Tua's unbelievable. They have the best receivers maybe ever on a college football team, but their running game is not where we expected it from what we heard.
No, it's not there yet. And like I said last week, to me, a lot of it has to do with the tight ends this year. That, you know, I'm not bad mouthing them, but they're not blocking, and even the interior of the line is not blocking like we should. We had some better runs in the later parts of the game today. You know, but something, you know, they're gonna have to get better than that. Like we've always said, you got Tua and you got all those receivers, and I mean, they're good, but when you run up against a good team, I mean, they were there last year, you know, and I mean, toward the end of the year, the better defenses devised plans and, you know, fooled him some. But I will say, you know, this year he does look like he's taking his check downs a little more. He's not going for the home run ball every time.
Yeah.
But I still think when you run into a really good defense and a good coordinator that has time to prepare, that we're going to need more than just the passing game. I mean, we're going to have to be able to run the ball, and right now there's some concern. So,
Well, and I'll say I was impressed with the fight from South Carolina team. I thought they fought hard all day, and I thought Muschamp, I thought he threw everything he could throw at Alabama, and it was an entertaining game. It's a good thing that Alabama has time to work on some things before they really play a top 10 team, because they've got some things that they need to work out.
yeah, they had like 459 total yards on them. I mean, South Carolina had like 400, 320 something passing, and in the secondary was
True
supposed
freshman
to be,
quarterback.
Yeah, and the secondary was supposed to be our strong point this year, or supposed to be our strong point this year. But the quarterback for South Carolina, I was impressed with him. I thought he played really well. I mean, he didn't look intimidated at all. I mean, he looked really good to me, and he's just a freshman also. So, I mean, he hit some passes, and
he did.
So
He did, and but Alabama's got to shore up that running game. If they want to win a championship, they're going to have to get to where they can run the ball when they want to run the ball. Because if you keep your defense out on the field that many times, it will be just like that game when we saw that Alabama and Clemson playing, and Clemson had Deshaun Watson, and Alabama's defense was on the field for 100 plays. You're not going to stop anybody when you're on the field that much. So,
no, I heard, in Coach Saban's press conference, he was like, jokingly, I guess he said that he don't think he's got enough players to be on the field for 86 defensive plays throughout the season. I know he said that kind of joking, but I think he's a little concerned himself. Just
from what they've got things they need to work out, and we will see. Going through the other teams, Georgia looked impressive in their win. LSU, they struggled a little early, but you could expect that coming off a big game like they did. But then they really looked impressive the second half. LSU is a good-looking football team. Oklahoma, to me, they look impressive.
But they played
UCLA
and they're about. I can't believe that UCLA looks as bad as they do.
They look
it's
awful.
Several years ago, UCLA and Oklahoma game was a marquee game. But
they can't even get people in the stand.
UCLA looks awful.
And I'm really surprised that Chip Kelly in year 2 is this bad. I mean, they are awful.
They're terrible.
I realize he hasn't gotten a quarterback, but we talked about 3 teams in the East a while ago in the SEC. They all lost their starting quarterbacks: South Carolina, Kentucky, and Florida. And the guys that came in and backup, every one of them have looked good. The boy from South Carolina today, true freshman, looked great. The boy from Kentucky, I thought, played a hearty game. And the boy from Florida came in off the bench and basically led them to victory.
Yeah. And
then Chip Kelly has been at UCLA, and he cannot find a quarterback.
Their defense is horrible too. I mean, it's like watching you just running through water. I mean,
I expected them to be another Oregon.
They're far from that, I think. From the first 3 games I've seen them play this year.
Yeah.
They don't look good. I mean,
not taking anything away from Oklahoma.
No,
Jalen Hurts put up another 300-yard passing day. He had 100 on the first drive.
Yeah.
Or 99. They look good. They are going to be a good. I cannot wait to see that Oklahoma and Texas game. To me, the most surprising team in the whole top 10 is Ohio State. Ohio State, they had a solid win today over an Indiana team. Indiana team that was a good football team. Ohio State was only a 16-point favorite. They went in there and they won by 41. Last week they were about the same favorite over Cincinnati, blew their doors off. Cincinnati this weekend had a big win. So they beat good teams, solid teams. They've just dominated them, and we will see. Notre Dame cruised to victory. They've got a big game this week. Auburn, they had a big victory over Kent State. And Florida won, as we've already discussed. Michigan was off. So, again, in the top 10, nobody lost. So, we had, if you look inside the top 25, the only team that you have to go all the way down to number 18, Michigan State loses to Arizona State, 10-7, low-scoring game. They missed a field goal. It was a field goal game. Arizona State's a good football team, so I wouldn't really call that an upset. The Maryland Terrapins lost 20-17 to Temple. Game was at Temple. I would say that would be a slight upset, especially the way Maryland's been playing. But that's got to be not so good for the Big Ten. And that was basically it. As we're filming this game late, it looks like it looks like Virginia's going to hold on to beat. The game at Florida State could go either way right now, as Virginia, just inside the top 25 at 25, is holding on to a 7-point lead with 19 seconds to go in that game. But like we said, there wasn't a whole lot of surprises this week. If you look inside the SEC, Missouri had a big win. They blew out their opponents.
Citadel had a big win today.
They beat Georgia Tech.
That was a big win for them.
That was a big win for them. The Tennessee, they got off to snide. They had their first win of the year. And it's going to be interesting, and we'll talk about this in the games of the week. How competitive can they be against Tennessee, against Florida next week? It'll be interesting. Arkansas, they had a big win over Colorado State, and you've got to wonder if Colorado State is looking to get rid of Bobo. That was a little disappointing season for tenure that he's had there. Arkansas is trying to get better as they move to 2-1 on the year. They better get this was a must-win for them if they want any chance of getting to 6 wins. They play San Jose State next week. That could be 3 wins. They've got to find 3 wins somewhere else on that schedule. We will see. Mississippi State, disappointing loss for the SEC. Kansas State,
yeah.
Totally. I was not impressed with the effort early in the game. That was that sleepy 11 o'clock game, as Kansas State came in there and they acted like they had something to prove. I watched pretty much every bit of that game.
Yeah, Mississippi State didn't. They didn't look too inspired.
They did not at all. And they had a chance to really blow that game open early, and the boy from Kansas State fumbled the punt, or they were going to have the ball inside Mississippi State territory, a chance to go up by 3 scores, and the boy, the punt was so awful, it was one of the up guys that tried to field it, and he muffed the punt. And had that not happened, that game it shouldn't even have been that close. I watched a lot of the Ole Miss game. Ole Miss, their offense just looks like the defense is playing better, playing harder, but they still look like they're missing something on defense. And on the offense, they're not clicking. Ole Miss is, if they're going to have any chance at getting 6 wins this year, they've got a game next week against Cal as they host California, the Bears, in Oxford. And if they got any shot at getting 6 wins, that is a must-win game for Ole Miss. So we will see. Texas A&M looks solid, and they've got the CBS early game next week as they play Auburn, and we'll talk about that a little bit coming up in our games of the week. So we discussed, Josh, how bad this past week was. Now we're moving into week 4.
We should have some better games.
We've got a lot of good games. So, and it starts Friday night. Friday night, Utah is playing at USC.
Who lost today?
Who lost today to a very surprising, fun to watch BYU team.
Yeah, I guess
They have won 2 games in a row in overtime.
they may be better than what we thought they were.
Well, they're entertaining to watch, and Utah played them early in the year, and Utah dominated BYU. It wasn't even BYU looked very flat when they played Utah. Now USC, which lost to BYU, has to go gets to host Utah, so that should be an interesting game Friday night. And also another interesting game Friday night is Air Force, which had a big win today over Colorado, coached by Tucker. Used to coach at Alabama.
Tucker.
Colorado coming off that win against Nebraska last week. Air Force beat them, and now they go to Boise State. So, Boise State's undefeated. They have that win against Florida State, which, on and all, everybody's beating Florida State these days. As Florida State has lost another game to Virginia tonight.
That's over.
It's over with. So, Air Force and Boise State Friday night. So that's 2 good games Friday night that kick the week off.
All right. Is that on TV?
Both those games will be on TV.
At Boise State.
It's at Boise State.
On the blue field.
On the blue field, on the blue carpet.
I don't know if I can watch that.
It'll be a good game. Very good game. Then we move into Saturday, and it is a lot of good football games. We talked about in the SEC, you have Ole Miss playing, hosting California. A much-needed victory for Ole Miss to win that game against California if they want to get bowl eligible. You have Michigan at Wisconsin.
It should be a good game.
That should be a very good game. Both teams were off this week, and should be an entertaining game. Wisconsin, you remember we talked about, they've not even been scored on this year. Who do you like in that game?
It's at Wisconsin.
At Wisconsin. Harbaugh, this is his, 4th year at Michigan?
I like Wisconsin.
You like Wisconsin?
I do like Wisconsin.
If
like you said,
Harbaugh cannot win this game, and I don't think they will. I think this Wisconsin team is for real. I think they may be the best team in the Big Ten. We'll see. Maybe better than it'll be interesting. I think Ohio State's a great football team, but I think Wisconsin may be by the end of the year.
Well, it'll be good, interested to watch this game, see what Wisconsin looks like, and see what Michigan looks like. But I do like Wisconsin.
Yep, that's going to be an interesting game. Tennessee at Florida. Just to show you how far this game has fallen, it's been moved to the 11 o'clock time slot on one of the ESPN or ESPN alternate channels.
That used to be the prime
to be the prime time game. Couldn't wait, and now it's 11 o'clock kick. So, but
who do you like in that one? That's a tough
well,
one.
I like
Tennessee
Florida
will
at
play- yeah,
home,
do, yeah.
even without their quarterback. But you never know how when you lose a player like Franks, because all the players seem to really gravitate to him. You know, when he went out, the whole bench went out there to him. And I think in the heat of the moment is you don't really get caught up in that. But now that they're going to have a whole week to deal with that, think about that. It's going to be interesting to see how that team handles losing a quarterback, which was evidently their leader.
Yeah.
So, and Tennessee is a dangerous, a injured team. You know, they're a team that's scarred, and they're a scared team, and you know it's like
It wouldn't surprise me if they went
I
in
wouldn't-
there and won.
It wouldn't surprise me a bit. You remember last year they had their times when they really didn't look good, but probably the best that they looked was on the road, and the best that they looked was when they beat Auburn.
Yeah.
You know, nobody really gave them a chance. So I'm interested to see where that line falls tomorrow. And it may not come out because it should come out because they know Franks is not going to
Yeah.
play. If there was some question, it wouldn't come out. But they know he's not going to play, so you know who you got. You got a chance to see him. I would expect that line to come out around Florida, around a 10-point favorite. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Tennessee kept that game close. USC at Pitt's another game. The reason I say that is an interesting game is
UCF.
UCF at Pitt. UCF has had some big wins. Now they've got to go on the road and play an ACC team. We will see. I mean, they are putting together a fairly solid little resume here. They beat the brakes off Stanford today. They beat them like they stole something.
Yeah.
And the final score was 48-25 or something, but it was at one time it was very bad. And if UCF can go in there and win these games, you know, they will be the group of 5 team that gets represented in a bowl. So over a Boise. So
Yeah.
we will see. Washington, they bounced back today after they lost that game. They go to, they're at BYU.
Yeah.
Team that we've talked about.
BYU's all over the TV all of a sudden.
They're all over. They're
This year.
independent. Yeah, they're independent. They're entertaining to watch. They are. And but this will be, you know, the first game they had their rivalry game against UCLA. Second week they went to Tennessee. Third week they had an overtime victory over USC. Probably one of the, I mean, that's BYU beating a team like USC. There's not too many victories like that in the
Right.
trophy case.
Yeah.
So now I just wonder how much is in the well for a team like that. I would not be surprised if Washington really brings the Thunder to BYU next week. Only because, I mean, that's got to be a mental drain 3 weeks in a row going through those games that they've gone through. Staying out west, Oregon at Stanford. Stanford looks horrible. This used to be the big game of the year in the Pac-12. To me, Oregon looks like the real deal. So I think they need to win that game. But anytime you go on the road, it's a little bit different. Oklahoma State at Texas. That's going to be the primetime game next week on ABC. That's going to be Oklahoma State struggled a little bit today. Maybe they were looking ahead to Texas. Texas played Rice, kind of went through the motions, but now you're starting to now we're getting into conference play. The Big 12 is really starting. The Big 10, Big 12 is starting conference play. The ACC's been playing conference game. The SEC starting to kick into gear. So it'll be interesting to see. Then staying close to home, you got Auburn at Texas A&M.
I don't even know how to pick that game. I can't figure Auburn out really right now.
I mean,
and I can't figure Texas A&M. Well, I mean, we know a little bit about Texas A&M because they played Clemson, but Auburn, you know.
Well, in Auburn, they played Oregon, and what was a good, that was the best win in week 1. So I think that game to me, and you tell me what you think. Auburn at Texas A&M, that is like how the wrestling world used to call loser leave town match.
That's it.
I think the loser of that one can pack their bags.
They're playing basically for third place in the West.
I think, yeah.
No.
I think that the loser is basically out.
Yeah. That should be a good game. That should be a really good game.
It's 2:30 game on CBS. It's first one of the doubleheader.
But I wouldn't even start to pick, on who would. What's the line on the game? Or what do
I
you
don't
think it'll
know. I would guess A&M -3. And if I'm off much on that, that would tell me something. But I would give A&M a 3-point favorite. And hey, I've been high on A&M.
Yeah, I wouldn't
and I
touch it.
think that if A&M's going to, the only thing that scares me about them is I don't think Mon's gotten any better.
No, he doesn't. No.
But I don't
You can't
think
really say so. I mean, he really. Well, of course, the big game that I watched him in was against Clemson, but it's against that defense. It's probably kind of that skews it a little bit because they're one of the top elite defenses. But I don't know. That game's going to be. That's going to be interesting, and I expect it's going to be a good game. And but I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't even guess. But Texas A&M at home. That's a loud place to play, and they can have the 12th man tradition.
Yeah,
And they always play good.
They do,
at home,
they
so.
do, and I think Jimbo has them hungry. So they hungry, but I think that the loser of this game,
Loser leave town.
Loser's out of the West. In my opinion, loser's out of the West in this game. So, Texas A&M has a tough schedule, and Auburn, they don't have an easy schedule themselves. So, there's going to be 5 games that I'm saying that Auburn is underdogs in. This game, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and at Florida. I don't know about at Florida now since they've lost their quarterback, but I had said that they would be underdog in those 5 games. And we will see. And then the game of the week. Game prime time. CBS picked over SEC teams as the prime time game. Notre Dame at Georgia. I don't blame CBS for picking this game. That's anytime you get a chance to show Notre Dame.
Notre
at
Dame
Georgia,
put a lot of points up today.
And I believe you're high on the dogs here.
I like Georgia. I think they're going to take care of Notre Dame and decisively.
You think it's going to be big?
I'm guessing there's going to be no question. I don't know how many points it's going to be.
I'm thinking the line's going to be around 7 or 8.
But I think Georgia will take care of them.
I may be off on that line there. I'm not sure.
I don't think it'll be a questionable game. I think Georgia will beat them, and it won't even be a question. That's just my opinion.
I mean, but it's going to be some good games next week, and it
It'll be
starts on
than
Friday.
This week.
Yeah. It wouldn't take much to get better than this week. Looking in the SEC conference where we're from, it also is going to be Kentucky at Mississippi State. 2 teams coming off heartbreaking losses. That's a big game. That's a game right there where you're battling for both positioning. To which team can bounce back from the disappointing loss the best? The game's in
That'll be a good
Starkville.
one. Yeah, we'll see.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not impressed at all with the coaching at Mississippi State. I'm not impressed at all. From their bowl game last year to what I saw today,
Well, I think they got who would take the job, you know.
they the one that I'm not impressed. Missouri hosts South Carolina. We've talked about Tennessee and Florida. Vanderbilt plays LSU. Vanderbilt really hasn't shown much of a fight this year. They get LSU at 11 o'clock. I don't think that'll be a problem for the Tigers.
Nope.
Tigers are going to march. Alabama hosts Southern Mississippi.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock game.
That'd be a hot one.
That's going to be a hot one.
I hope those 11 o'clock games sometimes catch you sleeping.
I hope
not that they'll win, but you know how the 11 o'clock games
I
are.
hope in that game, Alabama, in these next coming up games, that they're able to really establish the run, work on the run, their run blocking, their run schemes.
Yeah.
That run that Najee Harris had today, that was impressive. You'll probably see that on highlights throughout the year.
Yeah.
Anytime you hurdle a guy like he did, that's impressive. We talked about Arkansas needing to go to 3-1 next week over San Jose State. Ole Miss, we talked about hosting Cal. Cal really put it on Ole Miss last year, so it'll be interesting to see if they can return the favor this year.
Yeah, they're coming down here to the
They're coming to the Grove.
to the south and the.
So Ole Miss is probably hoping for some hot weather like we had this week, because it's been brutal.
Yeah. So I mean, it's who do you like in that game?
I just don't have a whole lot of confidence in Ole Miss right now. Maybe I'm wrong.
What do you think? What do you think the line on this game will be?
Man, I think that would be close to. I think I'm just guessing here. I would say California 4-point favorite. Be interesting to see if I'm right coming out on these lines next week.
That's a night game or?
No, as you know, I think that's 11 o'clock. That may be playing in Ole Miss's favor. I'm not sure when that is, but the only night game next week, per contract by the SEC, is the Arkansas-San Jose State game, because nothing else could go against the Notre Dame-Georgia game. So everything else is either 11 or 3 o'clock game. So I think we mentioned that I thought that Alabama Southern Miss game would be an 11 o'clock game, and it was, because I knew the contract stipulations. I knew they had 4 games that day. So anyway, that's that. So that's week 3 review and week 4 preview.
Yeah.
So hey, the weeks are just clicking by. Before you know it, they'll be over.
Looking forward to next week to watch some good games.
There'll be a lot of good games next week. We're starting to conference play for a lot of teams. The big boys like Alabama started today. LSU's they kicked their SEC playoff next week, as Georgia's already, they opened up with the conference game. So to me, those are the 3 favorites. Alabama, LSU, and Georgia, in no specific order. It's going to be interesting to see which one of those 3 comes out, or if anybody else comes in, like Auburn or Florida. So we'll see. But week 3's in the book, JB.
Yep. It's done.
It's done.
Thank
We'll
goodness.
see what happens. But anyway, that'll do it.
All right.
So till next week, I'm gonna take a little week of vacation here, get ready to go to the beach, getting ready for week 4. A lot of good college football games coming on here. Remember to go to cfbbroadcast.com. We're hoping to have the podcast up and available soon for you guys, as this is our inaugural season. We'd like again to thank our producers, Kimberly Madison and Perry Madison, for without them this would not be possible. We thank you guys much for listening, and we will see you again next week.